12 years. That's how long we had. 12 years of marriage, a lifetime in New York minutes. If you'd told me one stupid decision, a single text could detonate everything, I'd have laughed in your face. Now, standing here, watching my world crumble like a cheap hot dog stand on a Saturday night, laughter's the last thing on my mind. My name's Michael, and for 12 years I swore I knew what real happiness was. Sarah and I, we were young, hungry, climbing the corporate ladder in this concrete jungle. We bumped into each other, literally, at a dive coffee shop in the East Village. Spilled coffees, awkward apologies, a flicker of something real. Dates blurred into forever, or so I believed. We built a life, brick by brick, shared dreams under the city lights, quiet nights in our Brooklyn brownstone. Not perfect, no rom-com fantasy, but solid. Rock solid, or so I damn well thought. Lately, though, solid felt more like shifting sand. Sarah was drifting, a ghost in our own apartment. Her smiles were rare, her laughter a distant memory, her eyes glued to her phone. Notifications buzzed constantly, each ping a little jab in my gut. She'd grin at messages, secrets locked behind a screen she'd snap shut the second I looked her way. "Who's that?" I'd ask, trying to sound casual, like it didn't eat at me. "Just a friend," she'd say too fast, thumb dancing across the lock button. One night, dinner at our usual Italian place in the neighborhood, the tension was thick enough to cut with a breadstick. She was lost in her phone, barely touched her lasagna. "Everything okay?" I asked, my voice tight. She jumped, like I'd startled her awake. "Yeah, fine." She looked anywhere but at me. "I reconnected with an old friend today." My stomach clenched. "Anyone I know?" She hesitated, a beat too long. "You remember David, right? From college? David. Her David. Her ex-boyfriend, the one before me, the ghost that had always flickered at the edges of our history. I thought you guys were history," I said, trying to keep my voice level, like this was just a weather report. "We were," she admitted, her eyes darting around the restaurant, anywhere but mine. "But he found me on Facebook. We started chatting. It was nice catching up. Nice catching up. Like bumping into an old neighbor, not rekindling a flame from the past." "Unexpected," I managed, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. She gave me this smile, soft, almost dreamy. "We were friends before we dated, remember? It's no big deal." But it felt like a 5-alarm fire in my chest. The next few days were a blur of buzzing phones and whispered secrets. Her phone became surgically attached to her hand. Giggles escaped her in the kitchen, hushed calls she took in the bedroom, door firmly shut. Walk in on her and conversations would end abruptly. Screens would go dark. "Why all the cloak and dagger stuff?" I finally snapped one evening, the question exploding out of me. She sighed, like I was being deliberately dense. "It's not cloak and dagger, Michael. You're overreacting." "Overreacting? Am I? Because it sure feels like you're hiding something." The bomb dropped one Tuesday night. We were in the living room, a silence stretched between us, tight and uncomfortable. Sarah was flipping through a magazine, pretending to read. "David asked me out for drinks," she said, like she was announcing she was going to grab coffee at Starbucks. I stared at her blank. "You're what?" "He's in town for a few days. Thought it would be fun to reconnect in person. It's been years." "I don't think that's appropriate, Sarah." My voice was dangerously low. "He's your ex." She rolled her eyes, that dismissive gesture that always sent my blood pressure through the roof. "Don't be ridiculous. We're adults. It's just a friendly meetup." Friendly meetup? With the guy she dated before me? The guy who probably still carried a torch? Frustration surged, hot and bitter. "I'm not comfortable with this." "Oh, come on, Michael," she snapped, the magazine hitting the coffee table with a thud. "You need to trust me." "Trust isn't the issue, Sarah. Respect is. I'm asking you not to go." She stood up so fast her chair scraped against the hardwood floor. "You can't control who I see." Her voice was sharp, like broken glass. "I'm going, and that's that." Hope flickered, a tiny, desperate flame that she'd see the reason, that she'd understand how much this twisted my gut. But then I walked into our bedroom and saw her, dressed to kill. A sleek black dress that showed off every curve, heels I hadn't seen her wear in months, makeup flawless, red lipstick that screamed confidence, smoky eyes that could launch 1,000 ships. She looked stunning. But the effort, the sheer, deliberate effort she was putting into this harmless meetup, punched me in the gut. "You're really going?" I asked, standing frozen in the doorway. She glanced at me in the mirror, attaching diamond studs to her ears. Yes, Michael, I already told you. It's nothing. It doesn't look like nothing. My arms crossed, a futile attempt to contain the storm inside me. You're dressed like this for a friend? When was the last time you put in this much effort for me? She sighed, turning to face me, exasperated. Michael, don't start. I'm not starting anything. My voice was rising, cracking at the edges. I'm just saying this feels wrong. If you go, it's like you're choosing him over me, over us. That's ridiculous, she hissed, grabbing her clutch from the dresser. You're totally overreacting. I'll be back in a couple of hours. She brushed past me, ignoring the tremor in my voice when I said, If you walk out that door, Sarah, don't expect me to be here when you get back. She paused, her hand on the doorknob, back to me. But she didn't turn. Then she opened the door and walked out, just like that. Silence slammed down the second the door clicked shut. Her heels echoed on the hallway floor, fading into the city noise outside. My chest felt like it was caving in, like a building imploding. I couldn't believe she'd actually left. It wasn't just the date, it was the casual dismissal, the way she brushed off my feelings like they were lint on her perfect black dress. 12 years. And she could just walk out the door, dressed to impress another man? I stared at the spot where she'd been, the phantom scent of her perfume hanging in the air. Red lipstick, smoky eyes. For him. David. The name burned on my tongue. She'd dressed up like that for someone else after I'd begged her not to go. How had we gotten here? How had our solid brick-by-brick marriage crumbled into dust so fast? Anger simmered, then boiled over. But underneath, a deeper ache throbbed. Hurt, raw, and gutting. I looked around the living room at the framed photos on the shelves. Us laughing on a rooftop bar, hiking upstate, our wedding day smiles frozen in time. I couldn't stay here. Not like this. Not in this empty shell of what we were. In that moment, it hit me, hard and cold. I couldn't do this anymore. Not a marriage where my feelings, my boundaries meant absolutely nothing. If she could dismiss me this easily, what was next? Respect. It was the bedrock, the foundation. Without it, we were just roommates, strangers sharing a lease, pretending at happiness. I stood up, legs heavy, and walked to the bedroom. Pulled out a suitcase from the closet. Didn't need much. Just the essentials. Clothes, toiletries, a few photos, the ghost of a life we'd built. Packed fast before doubt could creep in, before I could second guess the only sane decision I'd made all day. This wasn't the ending I wanted, but it was the ending I needed. Before I left, I grabbed my phone. Couldn't just vanish into thin air. Opened her family group chat, the one they'd added me to after the wedding, welcoming me into their crazy, loving Italian clan. Fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then I typed, the words coming out in a rush, sharp and final. After 12 years, I can't stay with someone who disrespects me this completely. Sarah's out on a date with her ex. I'm done. Stared at the message, reread it, making sure it was brutal, honest. Then I hit send. The fallout was instant. My phone exploded. Calls, texts, a digital wildfire. Sarah's sister first, then her mom, then her dad, all demanding answers, frantic questions. What's going on? Where's Sarah? I didn't have the energy to explain, to dissect the wreckage of our marriage, ignored the calls, flipped the phone to silent, and walked out the door, suitcase in hand, leaving the ringing unanswered, the questions hanging in the air. Driving away, the city lights blurring through the windshield, I pictured Sarah. What would she do when she saw that message bomb? Anger? Definitely. Embarrassment? Probably. But this wasn't about her anymore. It was about me. About finally drawing a line, refusing to be invisible, refusing to let my feelings be trampled under her designer heels. Later, I pieced together the rest of the night, the chaotic aftermath. It unfolded exactly as I'd imagined. A train wreck in slow motion. Sarah, all dolled up, strutted into some trendy bar in the West Village, ready to play out her little fantasy. David was there, grinning like he'd won the lottery. For a few minutes, maybe 10, she got her ego boost, the thrill of being desired again. Then her phone started buzzing. A text, then another. Calls started coming in. She ignored them at first. But the buzzing wouldn't stop. Call after call, text after text, her phone lit up like a Christmas tree, a digital SOS. Messages from her sister, her parents, each one more frantic than the last. Finally, Julia, her sister, got through. Julia doesn't do sugarcoating. Her voice was sharp, slicing through the bar noise like a knife. What the hell are you doing, Olivia? Michael says he's leaving you. Is this some kind of sick joke? Sarah had convinced herself I was bluffing, that I wouldn't actually walk, but this time was different. This time, I'd torch the bridge. Guilt hit her like a freight train. Panic flared. She mumbled some lame excuse to David, something about an emergency, grabbed her purse, and bolted. Left him standing there, confused, alone, wondering what the hell just happened. Me? I was at Phil's place. Phil, my best friend since college, the guy who always had my back, no questions asked, showed up at his door with a suitcase, looking like I'd been hit by a truck. He just opened it, pulled me inside, poured a stiff drink, and sat across from me, waiting. Didn't push, didn't pry, just waited for me to unravel. Man, he finally said, hours later, after I'd finally spilled everything, the anger, the hurt, the disbelief. This is heavy, real heavy. You gotta figure out what you really want, Mike. Fight for it or walk away. I didn't answer. How could I? My emotions were a tangled mess, a hurricane of anger, sadness, betrayal. It felt like the world had tilted on its axis. That night, I lay awake on Phil's couch, staring at the ceiling. The city sounds a dull roar outside. 12 years. You don't just throw that away, not without a fight. But what was there left to fight for? Doubt gnawed at me. Had I pushed her away? Had I been blind to her unhappiness? But every time I started to shoulder the blame, the image of her, dressed up for David, flashed in my mind. That date, that deliberate act of disrespect. Trust. It's a fragile thing, like spun glass. Shatter it, and you can glue it back together, but the cracks will always be there, visible, sharp. Sarah didn't waste any time trying to pick up the pieces, or maybe just put on a performance for the family. My phone started ringing again, her number flashing on the screen, relentless. I ignored every call. Wasn't ready to hear her voice, not after everything. Not after the lies, the secrecy, the blatant disrespect. When the calls went unanswered, the texts started. Late that night, my phone buzzed with a novel-length message from her. I read it, jaw clenched, emotions twisting in knots. She admitted it, admitted her mistakes. Something Sarah rarely did. Wrote about insecurities, frustrations, how she'd felt invisible, taken for granted. Said meeting David wasn't about him, not really, but about feeling wanted, feeling seen, in a way she thought I no longer bothered with. Remorse poured out of her words, pleading for another chance. Michael, she wrote, I know I've hurt you in ways I can't even begin to understand. I was selfish, stupid. Please, let's fix this. I'll do anything to rebuild the trust I broke. It wasn't just Sarah. Her family piled on. Julia called the next day, her voice softer this time. Michael, I know you're furious. You have every right to be. But think about everything you and Sarah have built. 12 years. One mistake, no matter how bad, shouldn't erase all of that. Her parents called too, their voices heavy with disappointment and a strange kind of hope. Michael, her mom said, her voice thick with emotion. We all make mistakes. Marriage is about forgiveness. Don't let one bad chapter ruin your whole story. Their words hung in the air, heavy, echoing in my head. I thought about the years, the good times, the life we'd built. But then the betrayal crashed over me again, a tidal wave of anger and hurt. David, her with him. The disrespect, the blatant disregard for my feelings. How could I ever trust her again? Sitting alone in Phil's quiet apartment, the city a distant hum, I realized something stark and undeniable. Respect. Communication. They weren't just words, they were the pillars holding everything up. And when those pillars crumbled, even the strongest love story could collapse. Sarah had failed to respect me, our vows, our marriage, and maybe in my own way, I'd failed to see the cracks forming, the distance growing between us. Now I'm here, at a crossroads. Do I try to rebuild from the rubble, take her at her word, believe in her repentance? Or do I walk away, close this painful chapter, and start over? 12 years. A lifetime. But is it a lifetime worth salvaging? This is the brutal truth. Relationships are fragile. Respect your partner. Communicate. Never, ever take love for granted. Because one stupid decision, one careless act of disrespect, can shatter everything you thought was unbreakable.